Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah.
And I'm Curtis.
And today we are here with Josh Poer of Phobophilic.
Hey
Welcome back to the
guys,
podcast.
thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks so much for coming back on.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about touring. We're going to talk a little bit about Milwaukee Metal Fest. But to start things off, I wanted to maybe get a little background on the circumstances that led up to you being on tour with the Black Dahlia Murder. How did that come about, and what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so um, more or less, there had been kind of it had been in kind of in the works for us. There was kind of prior to Trevor's passing had been like another tour that was in the works that we were kind of slated to do like opening on like we did on this tour. Obviously Trevor passed, that kind of the future was uncertain. We, obviously hadn't heard anything uh, just regarding like, if they were going to continue as a band or like continue touring. And then months and months later, um, we kind of hear again from like our label owner, EJ, who's also Black Dahlia's manager, like, they are coming back. There will be a tour. Like, I still kind of want to have you guys slotted as like the opener for that. So I think really it was kind of just having that relationship with EJ, like being a band on his label, probably is kind of what set that in motion for us getting that, just getting on the tour, really.
Just to clarify one thing, so this was your biggest tour to date, right?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. So I wanted to ask, so what was it like being the first band on like a stacked bill like that? Like, how was the reception as a general rule? I know when I saw you guys,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty good, but was it normally like you guys were playing to empty seats, or was it like full? Like, how was it kind of going with you?
So like as far as that goes, it kind of varied. There were definitely like a few shows where it was like, okay, like there's not that many people here yet, but it's our time to play anyway, so we're gonna play. But then there were also shows where it's like it's packed in here, like, and there's still like 30 minutes to doors, or like I think kind of like their fan base is strong, and they had like quite a few people who would show up and like they're lined up at the barrier, like, just waiting. But I think too, just as far like within the first like few shows, we had like had a conversation in the van, and we're kind of like it had just really sunk in, kind of like how difficult sometimes it is to like win their crowd over, or like just get people a little more enthused, I guess, and not kind of just like watching respectfully. Um, so that was definitely like tangible, I would say, kind of just that feeling like, okay, yeah, like we're the opener, like our kind of sole duty out here is to win over as many people as possible, because not very many people here have heard of us or like know that we even exist yet. Um, but there were like still a handful of shows where it was like, okay, like the crowd's just into it, like really energetic, and those were like some of the best shows, I think, for like all the bands.
How would you compare this tour to the reception when you were on the Undeath 200 Stab Wounds tour, out of curiosity?
I think the reception on the Undeath tour for us was just like a little bit better, just because I think like the discrepancy between like the size of our bands is less so than like us and Black Dahlia. Um, and that was something I was kind of thinking about too, is just like, I don't know, your experience, or like how much a crowd will be into you, or like kind of let themselves loose and like have more fun. It seems like a little dependent on like, yeah, like what is that discrepancy between like if you're first to five, like where do you kind of stand compared to the headliner, and it's just like us in Undeath and us in Black Dahlia are like completely different things, at this point.
So how was it with the? It seemed like to me that there was so many different styles on this fucking lineup. It was like Black Dahlia's like
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, they're death metal, obviously, but they're not the same as your guys' style. And then there was Terror, obviously, and
Right.
Frozen Soul. Um, how did it pan out for you guys in terms of new fans, do you think, like in terms of Spotify listeners and sales and stuff?
I think, I think it was good for us, like overall. It wasn't like, again, like I think kind of before we went on the tour, just trying to like think about just even stuff like how much merch should we get printed, like, and I guess I bring that up because before we went on the tour, my thought was kind of like, okay, like the Undeath tour, we're playing mostly like 200 to 300 cap rooms. Like this was our reaction at these shows. This was like our sales and how we did. Um, okay, like on the Dahlia tour, like these 1,000 cap rooms, let me with my numbers like scale it up and see. And it's kind of like you can't, at least in our experience, like just scaling it up like doesn't really work. Um, but that's not to say like that we didn't, like I feel like we did like gain new fans like a lot from this tour, and like we're exposed to a lot of people who like maybe they wouldn't go out to like the Undeath headliner, like they're not quite there yet, or like that's not really in the realm of what they listen to, but they're like lifelong Dahlia fans, you know. um but I guess I don't know, it's like as far as like Spotify goes, like it was like fairly steady. Like I think like the most like tangible thing we saw, like as far as like with numbers, social media, it was like Instagram. um and I think because we came out of that, like had gained like 1,000 plus new followers and are still, I think, like kind of like gaining followers from that. So that was one thing where we had kind of had the thought like, okay, like we're sitting around like 9,000 right now. After this tour, like we'll probably be at like 10K. And then that did happen like before the tour had ended. So there was definitely like, you could tell there that like we are gaining followers from this. But the Spotify numbers and things, like they kind of remained like steady, I'd say.
Interesting.
Quick question, rolling back to
Mhm.
the less receptive crowds. If you kind of noticed a less receptive crowd, were there any strategies that you employed to kind of maybe hook in some of them? Or is it kind of just you just redouble your efforts and do what you do and hope that some of them will kind of warm up to you over time?
I would say the latter, probably. Like we kind of were just like, regardless of the crowd's reaction, like we're still gonna put on the same show that we always do. Like we're still gonna go hard and whatever, however you want to say. And then it's just like kind of uh I guess like managing your expectation on like in that sense, like to not let yourself kind of be discouraged or feel silly that like because it's like our slot, like that's kind of not the purpose we're like filling for the show. um and it is kind of like kind of makes, I don't know, maybe it's not like we were just thinking like what makes like a good show kind of, and it's like for a band, like it just performing like well or having a lot of energy on stage, like that's, it makes you have a good set. But I kind of feel like I'm starting to think like a good show kind of requires that, like we're giving you energy, give us energy, let's exchange energy, you know what I mean? um,
Totally. Um, you what do you feel like you mentioned like this is not like X might not be your role as the opener band. What do you think
mhm,
is the role of the opener band? For anybody listening who is doing an opening slot who
mhm.
might be confused on this.
I mean, I think from like a business perspective, like our role really is to try and win over as many Dahlia fans as we can. Um, and I mean, that is more or less like show people what we're about. And if they like it, that's awesome. If it's not their thing, that's fine too. So I think like uh, from a band's perspective, like if you're in that slot, like that's kind of what you're there to do for your band, is show show the headliners crowd like what you have to offer and see if they like it or not, more or less. and then I mean like just from like a perspective, the other kind of thing, it's like we're there to warm the show up, like, you know, get people ready. uh
Oh,
Yeah, makes sense.
so just to cut in here, so I've seen you guys twice now, both as the openers.
mhm.
Unfortunately, not the headliners yet. Uh,
Not yet.
Not yet. So one thing I did notice was because I saw you guys open for the Undeath / 200
Mhm.
Stab Wounds tour, and then obviously Black Dahlia. So one thing I did notice is that it seemed like um your vocalist was more into getting the crowd at the smaller venue with the Undeath 200 Stab Wounds show active versus
Mhm.
at the Black Dahlia one where it seemed like you were just trying to win over new fans. Am I right in that perspective that you guys were more into whipping the crowd up on the smaller show,
um
or am I mistaken in this?
I I I wouldn't say you're mistaken. It's just I think like personally, it's just more of like a comfortability kind of thing too. Like I think it's kind of easier to ham it up when you know the crowd's going to be receptive to it. Like no one wants to be up there like that guy or that vocalist like repeatedly asking the crowd to like circle pit or something like that, and like
Yeah,
no one does anything. Like it it doesn't, it just feels a little silly. So I think that that kind of played into it where we kind of understood that like okay, like these shows aren't really typically going to be like that for us, like we might tone that down, or like it's kind of just like you read the crowd like as we're playing, you know, if they're already seeming like okay, like I think we could, you know, have them do this, or like if we called something out on stage like people would be into it, um and do it, then there might be more like banter like that. But if it's kind of like we're playing and, you know, again, it's just kind of like respectful watching of what we're doing, then it might be like toned down a little bit.
that makes sense. So another thing that I noticed as well, I don't know if this was like this at every venue, but I did notice that the at least at the Toronto show, the merch table was in a very odd spot. Um, um, but you told me that actually worked okay for sales. So how do you kind of okay? So when you're normally playing like a Dahlia show, or when you were normally playing a Dahlia show, how did you kind of make the merch table more attractive for people, if that makes sense? Since you're for people listening, Josh handles their merch, just so everybody knows.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good question. Because, and let me just say this too for any bands that are listening, who, because I was under the impression on this tour that like space for merch would not be an issue because of the venues that these shows were at. It's still an issue.
And then you get to
Just
Toronto
so
and you
you,
see it.
yep, just so everyone knows, like you're still gonna be strapped for space even on a tour of like that size, because the venues just usually, not usually I guess, but don't always like have accommodations for a 5 band package. But as far as like making our table more attractive, I mean, I don't know, like we, I think not so much in like making the table more attractive, but there was definitely more so of having like any kind of like customer service you think you're doing like on a tour that's like more catered to what you do specifically, like you're gonna do more. At least like we had to do more because there's just more people who are like unfamiliar with like the specific subgenre or like wherever your band falls. Um, so there was just kind of more like that, and like just being patient with people who are just curious kind of about the opening bands, but they aren't familiar like with maybe what your band does specifically, um, or like the genre, or whatever, however you want to classify it, like where you would fall in, where like okay, everyone knows like what you're doing. It's like you'll just have to maybe do a little more customer service, you could say.
Which you were talking to pretty much anybody that walked past. It always seemed like, which was pretty interesting. Um,
Uh, I'll try to. Anyone who is interested, or like seems like they might be interested, or like stops and takes a look, like gotta say hey at least.
Gotta try at least, yeah. So just going back to our
Mhm.
last episode really quickly here, where we talked about Punishers, how frequent was that on this tour, other than me talking to you for an hour that one time?
Oh, that wasn't punishment,
That
Curtis.
was punishment. We both know it.
Is mutual punishment then.
Mutual punishment, yeah. Mutual
Um,
punishment.
uh, you know, again, I think it was kind of like the punishment on this tour was kind of more like what I was describing, where it's like, the same old drunk people. It's just drunk people who like do not know what you're doing at all. Like, don't know, like, probably don't listen to the bands like you're influenced by, stuff like that. And like, just having to chat it up and ham it up with them. It was a lot of like that specific kind of punishment, and not so much of like, oh my god, like I love your guys' band so much, and like I've been following since like this and this, which also isn't necessarily punishment. But yeah.
All the groupies coming after you guys. I knew it. Knew it.
Well, actually,
But
something
whoa, wait. Groupie
Wait,
talk?
wait,
there
wait,
was
wait.
Wait.
this
Okay,
this
let's hear
was
this.
not punishment. It was just something kind of funny. So like you've mentioned, like I'm doing merch.
Mhm.
Sometimes like our vocalist guitar player Aaron, like he'd come around the table, and it would all like there was one show in Texas where like just a whole group of girls like came up to him and like stood in a line to get a picture with him, and like asked me to take the pictures, which
No
like
way.
I don't feel any way about that, other than just thinking like it's kind of funny. I
It's
like
very
being
funny.
incognito sometimes. Like I don't mind that, but it was so there's like stuff like that, just funny, funny things.
Death metal groupies. I never even knew such a thing
I
existed. That's
guess
amazing.
so.
That's
I don't
amazing.
know.
Uh, Aaliyah, before I get into any weird questions here, do you want to ask something before
No, I'm good.
then I'm
I'm
going to get
just
into?
enjoying the stories. Go ahead.
Okay,
Just remember we want to talk about Milwaukee Metal Fest too.
we do. But I do want to ask what is the funniest story that you can tell us about the Black Dahlia tour without going into too many details, obviously, with specific names.
um well, so that picture story is funny. I don't know how funny the people that this happened to would think, but at one of the shows in Canada, Fuming Mouth's merch guy James, and then Christian, who plays bass in Phobo, and then Vinny, our drummer, got bear maced in the alley. Um,
Oh,
I
I don't
feel
know if
like this
that's
would be funny on film, but
that would
not
be
in
funny.
reality.
But
well,
yeah, yeah.
it was kind of funny to me hearing about it, because they like I'm just at merch, and then they walk back in. Like I guess Fuming Mouth's merch guy James got it really bad. Like
They're
he
fine.
yeah, they're fine now. But I guess Aaron and or sorry, Christian and Vinny were just walking down the alley, and I guess some houseless individuals just decided to let off some bear mace, and they all of a sudden are why am I coughing and like tears running down my face? So I guess I don't know if it's funny, but it's just absurd. Like strange things that happen on tour. Uh,
That was Vancouver, wasn't it?
uh, I think it might have been Calgary, maybe, or Edmonton.
Rednecks. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense.
That one was standout. Other just funny for some reason. I don't know if this is bad. Something that was funny to me was, so Christian was outside, and these don't really have anything to do with the tour, other than that we are there because we are on tour. I think this happened maybe one of the first night of tour. In Cleveland. Christian's outside talking with some people. Another houseless guy comes up. They're chatting. At some point, he asks Christian, "Do you have any money?" Christian's like, "Nah, I don't have any money." And he says, "Well, I do," and pulls out a big wad of cash on him, and just lets him know, like, I'm not broke. So I don't know,
Wow.
like
That's
just
insane.
just strange and funny encounters on the road that don't really have anything to do with the tour, but we're
Um,
there.
I wanted to ask you a somewhat serious question. Well, somewhat serious,
Mhm.
not completely serious, but so you guys were out for it was 2 months, I think it was. Was that correct about that?
So I from the time like we left to meet up with the tour to the time we got home, it was 7 weeks exactly.
Okay, so just under 2 months. Perfect. Okay, cool. So what kind of tips do you have to people for like not getting burnt out on the road for that amount of time? Because like, I mean, I'm imagining most people are like party it up. I'm assuming you guys didn't do that. I don't know, but I mean, I would be
Not
exhausted,
really.
but
Yeah. Nah, we're definitely like we're the type of band where other bands will be like, "Hey, we're going here after the show," and we're like, "We're tired, we're
yeah,
hungry, we're gonna
I
go to
figured.
sleep, but thank you." Like, so I guess that would be a tip. Like, be careful with your partying because there's not a lot of time to rest, like on a tour like this. I would actually kind of also say like if you can get to the venues early, like do that and rest in the green room. Basically it's like yeah, get your rest like wherever you can find it. And kind of and do like keep that in mind like when you're planning. Like we got a trailer for this tour, like we never toured with a trailer before, but it kind of just not even just for like what we need to bring, but it's like we need space in the van, like because some nights that's where we're sleeping, and like for us, like we didn't bring any crew with us, so it's just the four of us. Like everyone had a bench in the van. There was plenty of space. Like I think that helped a lot too with just having like that other option to sneak away in if you need to, and there's actually like room for you to do so.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I guess we don't have too much time left. So, Aaliyah, you want to ask about the famous festival?
About Milwaukee Metal Fest?
Of course.
Sure, I can start us off, but feel free to take us away with any side questions.
Oh, I
Um,
will.
I'm sure you will. So first off, how did you first find out that Milwaukee Metal Fest was coming back, and how did you get on the bill?
I think that so I want to say like I we probably didn't know Milwaukee Metal Fest was coming back until they had started like teasing it that it was. And how we got on that was so when we initially got the routing for the Black Dahlia tour, Milwaukee Metal Fest was a part of that. Um, we got some revised routing. It was no longer a part of it. But every band other than us was already on the bill. So we were kind
Oh,
of like, well, we want to play Milwaukee Metal Fest. Like, let me reach out to EJ and ask about this, or just like see what we can do. Um, he had already been talking with like the promoters. So again, it was like just having like people who are, I guess, a part of our team or like label kind of like being able to vouch for us and reach out to kind of make that connection. Um, but yeah, we like 'cause we weren't initially like booked to play Milwaukee Metal Fest until we had kind of reached out to have EJ reach out and then get us on there. And it's kind of like, well, the rest of the tour package is on here. Like, I think we could be on here too. Um,
totally, totally.
I was going to ask because unless I'm mistaken, you guys played at the same time as Undeath. So how did that go over?
just about. So we actually were the first band that played like at all on that Saturday. Like our slot, I think overlapped with Undeath's by like 10, 15 minutes or so.
Oh, that's all. Okay, cool.
Um, yeah, so it wasn't like so bad that way. And I mean really like we kind of were going into it like okay, like be prepared. We might play to like a pretty empty room.
Yeah,
Like it just is what it is. Like we're the first band playing. Like can't don't set your expectations too high, but
yeah.
the room like filled out. Like I feel like we had a really great set there, and like the
Awesome.
crowd was into it. We had like the people were chanting Phobo in the crowd. Like
Awesome.
we've never had a chant before. Like that was really sick.
Oh,
That's
So
awesome.
so it was really good. Like it felt really
nice.
good.
So, what kind of advantages do you think being on a festival like that gave you guys, if any, if anything?
I think like so I mean, I think you still like you always at the end of the day, like I mean the advantages are like you get to be at the fest for free, which is one of them.
Yes.
Which is sick. But other like for your band, I think it's like just a good kind of like accomplishment or like another thing you can kind of add when you are maybe trying to pitch yourself or doing things like that, where you can say like, okay, like we did this tour, like we appeared at Milwaukee Metal Fest, like the first one in decades, you know. So I think like it's kind of again like a earning your stripes kind of thing, I guess, or just another kind of little thing you can put in like your accolades or something, I guess. I don't know.
Um,
And
Go ahead.
oh, and do you feel like though you still have, is there still a benefit of getting new ears on your music?
Oh
Even
yeah.
with that super early slot. I mean, it's
Oh
less so with
yeah.
that, but
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think like even, you know, like had the room not filled out, like I still feel like anyone who was there, like it's still appreciated, like, and especially if they've never heard of us before and are, you know, just watching us because we're the only band playing at the moment, like I still think you benefit from that. Like anytime you can bring your music to someone who hasn't heard it before, like is a benefit, I think.
100%. Aaliyah, do we have like 5 more minutes, or are we running
yeah, go
short?
ahead.
Okay, so I'm sure you've had this happen. Every band has had this happen. So I was just at a show the other night, and I was literally the only person there that paid. It was all bands. Literally, it was
Yeah.
horrible. How do you keep yourself motivated when such a thing like that happens? Well, I mean, obviously, maybe not that bad, but when you got the low turnout, you're the first band on
Oh
the
no, we've
band. Like, how do you keep yourself motivated? Because each time I've seen you guys have been seemed extremely motivated. I mean, you weren't playing empty
mhm,
rooms, but I mean, like you're the first
right.
band. Half the time, the first band doesn't
Mhm.
seem as motivated as you guys are. So how do you kind of do that when there's like barely anybody there? Your first band up, and you see the crowd. There's like 6 people there, and you got to get up and
Um,
headbang and act like you're
yeah.
enthusiastic.
Um, I I guess we're just dedicated, like it, and it's that thing where you kind of just accept that like you accept the circumstance. Like so on that tour in particular, it's like, okay, like just remember like you're first of five right now, and like our band is you know, very little compared to the Black Dahlia Murder. So it's just that's just something you have to just accept and decide like, okay, well, is it like it's still worth it to us anyway, even if there were some nights where it's like, okay, there's like no one in this room right now. You're still on the tour. And it's that's the kind of thing too where it's like you can't really let those things like become like you can't let those things make you feel like it's like a reflection of yourself, because there are just a lot of factors into like having a successful show or like a well-attended show, and like they're not always dependent on like your band. Like we like literally like a year ago we played a show in Providence, Rhode Island, where it was like basically like us and bands, and like our door payout that we split with the other band that we were out with was $20. So we got $10 each, and we like we already know like, okay, the show is not, there's no one here like us, Phobophilic. We were like sitting in the van like, all right, and we hadn't gotten this money. We're like, we're probably just gonna leave. Like I, it's fine, like whatever. But then guy in the other band was like, nah, I'm gonna go in there because there was someone, and then they slid us $20. So
That's
and
awesome.
it's like sometimes it happens to every band. Every band plays shows like that. So I guess that's kind of like where it's like we just try not to let that, you know, just become like something where we feel like it's a reflection of us or our music or like because it's just not always the case, and like that just is what it is. Like every band will play a show with no one, like any band that tours has played a show like that, and still probably does every now and then because that's just what it is. Like I don't know, but
So
we've just also played great shows, so it's like, you know, maybe I'd feel different if like the only shows we ever played were like very poorly attended, but it's like, you know, just like that exists, like opposite end of the spectrum. Great shows are to be had for bands as well. So
100%. Were you at all on this tour, since there were so many bands of similar-ish style? Were you like paying attention to see if you guys could top them at any point, or what? I gotta ask. You gotta ask. Like, dude, four other bands every night. Come on.
Well, here's the thing. We go into any tour that we're about to do and be like, we want to blow every other band out of the water. Like, we want to be the best band here. Like, we want to put on the best show. We want to be the most into it, the most energy. Yes.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was.
Exactly. So it's like, I think there is kind of like that. I don't know if you'd say it's like competitive, but I mean, I think every band goes out there and is like, I want to shit on everybody. Like, I want this to feel like our stage right now. So like, of course, and I don't know, maybe that's just like how we hype ourselves up to try and do a good job. But like, of course we pay attention and like are watching. And that's the other thing, like any tour, like always pay attention to what's going on around you. Like, always listen to people's stories. Like, there's so much knowledge and like just information to be gained just literally from like listening and observing. That's invaluable. So
I don't know how you guys could get the energy of Terror, though. Those guys are fucking insane.
Oh no, yeah, I know.
Like, Jesus.
Let me just say, we usually limit that thought process to whoever else is opening with us. When it's like
Fair.
Terror, like they're legends. Like nah,
yeah.
like that's out of the question. But the other openers are fair game.
Yeah, totally. I only saw 10 minutes because I went to go talk to you, but I was like watching. I was like, holy fuck, those guys are energetic.
Yeah.
Jesus
And every night, like they did not have a bad night on that tour.
Insane.
Yeah.
Somebody drinks drink their power thirst.
And they're in their 50s. And they're in their 50s too, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes, like Scott in Terror is 50 and he is still so energetic, and not just on the stage either. He is just like that in person. He's very energetic.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to top that. Aaliyah, how much time do we got? What else do we got to cover before we end off?
Well, we can wrap up, I think. Do you have a wrap-up question? I have a one wrap-up question that you can ask one too.
I'm going to ask a silly-ish question. So, Phobophilic can pick any band to tour with as an opener or as a headliner right now. Any band in the world right now, who is it that you're taking out with you as either the headliner or you're the opener? It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. So if we're the opener, then I would say we'd be on the Cynic and Atheist entire tour. Like, that would be it for us. And we're blessed and lucky enough to be able to open one of the shows. But like, as soon as we kind of heard the rumblings that was going to happen, like we were already talking to like people at our label and trying to see like, okay, who maybe has an in for us to like see if we can do this. So that would be like, if we were opening, it'd be that. And we're lucky enough to like be able to do that for a night. If we were bringing out a band, I would say a band that like we've been talking about, like we want to bring this band out, it'd be Cavern Womb from Philadelphia. Just a sick death metal band. I think they just have a demo out right now, but their new album should be coming out this summer. And they're just really sick, really great guys too. So that'd definitely be who we'd bring out right now.
Cool.
Awesome. And then my wrap-up question, just the first thing that comes to mind is fine. It doesn't have to be like the right answer. Like, what is one big lesson you took away from going on the Black Dahlia Murder tour?
I think like the biggest thing, or just something that has it felt like really affirming, is like you can do a tour like that, like with no crew. And like really, and this was kind of like a conversation that we had with like Nick, the Black Dahlia Murders tour manager, is that like you really like, a lot of bands really don't need a big crew and a big team behind them, like at the points in which they start to do that. Like the Black Dahlia Murders crew really is three people, like three main people outside of the band. And they're running like a full production out there, you know, and they have like a lot of things and a lot of moving parts. And they still, it's like on the road, it's the band and like those three guys. And I think it kind of just really showed me the importance of like kind of being careful about like who you let on your team, you know, and that it's like really important that everyone is like on the same page and has the same goals and are like all working towards the same thing. And that it's okay to like do a big tour like this and like still just be in your 1995 Ford van and like have band members doing the merch and like running all the other stuff. Like you can do it, and you'll probably be better off for it because you will just have gained that experience, and maybe know what to look for and like what you want out of people like as you're kind of building your team up and your crew. So I think, yeah, that was like something important
Really
that I
good.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast, Josh.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again for having me.
He'll be back.
Happily.
I
Happily.
will. I will.
Yeah, he's coming back.
And everyone listening, thank you for listening. And until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.